We are going to be reading the worst reviews for the Star Wars prequel trilogies. Now, during the time that they came out, there was a lot of people that just weren't too fond of it, and it came to be that the only good one that came out, or at least decent one that they thought of at the time, was Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. But we won't just be looking at that specifically. We will be looking at all 3 episodes to find out where the haters are, both on the critic side and both on the audience side. That is the objective today, so let's get straight into it. Now, we gotta look at this real quick before we fully dive into the reviews. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, came out in 1999 and was the only Star Wars movie out of the prequel trilogies to make over $1 billion in the box office. But as we look a little bit further, only 52% of the critics recommended that you go watch this film, and only 59% of the audience recommended that you go watch this film. Well, barely over half of the critics and audience said, hey, this is a pretty good movie. But it's still pretty impressive that this Star Wars was the first one to reach over $1 billion in the box office. Enough of the good stuff, let's get straight into reading the worst reviews, and let's start with the critics. Oh, and how is it as a movie? Bad. Very bad. Terrible. Juvenile. Tedious. Empty. In that order. Does that matter? No. The Phantom Menace will always be possibly the single biggest missed opportunity in modern cinematic history. An amazingly disappointing film experience. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, gives us a great setup for what is to come in the future of Anakin and Palpatine. And for that, I am thankful. The rest is not great. I really don't want to be one of those Episode 1 haters. It does have some merit, but man, it just grates on you how annoying it is for the majority of its runtime. Pod racing sequence halfway through is exhilarating. The rest of it just about hangs together with some truly dreadful dialogue. Everything in Phantom Menace exists in a bright, noisy vacuum. What does that even mean? What if it had been good? What if it had been a movie? What do you mean by that? Let us go ahead and see what the audience had to say. This is my favorite part. Very annoying characters, and the story is very flat. This movie is just not good. It's not garbage, it's not unwatchable, but it's just so soulless. This film is devoid of any emotion and Jar Jar Binks. Meh, it passed the time. The lost me with the 1-2 punch of midichlorians and Anakin building C-3PO. In the much better heir to the Empire series of books, C-3PO and Lando go to the factory moon where he was built, and it went downhill from there. Jar Jar, Roger, and the tension around whether or not Sebulba was going to kill Anakin, aka the future Darth Vader. I spelled Anakin wrong there, bud. Even Ewan McGregor couldn't save this steaming pile of crap. Yeesh. Just a mess in every aspect. Horrible effects, clunky dialogue, and jarring story. Boring until the final battle. Kinda right. Pod racing scene was still good. Solid performances from Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor aren't enough to save a movie from the lackluster characters. Bad pacing and strange story choices. Duel of Fates is awesome though. We're gonna read one more and then we gotta get into episode 2, y'all. Gerard S. How the Mighty Have Fallen. That was all the haters from episode 1. Now let's go find them on episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now this is somewhat of an improvement. More of the critics. Now this is a bit of an improvement. More of the critics recommend that you go watch this film. It's bumped up to a 65%. But a little bit less of the audience recommends that you go watch the film. But still, more than half of both sides recommend that you go watch this. Let's start with the critics. Christian Eulenberg. I cannot express how terrible and dragged out the pacing of this entry was. It is the weakest episode of the prequel trilogy. We have the same guy, Rob Gonsalves. The action did less than nothing for me. There's no sense of awe or terror or grandeur in the imagery. A forgettable and discontented tale of entropy and corruption of a grand idealistic venture that has lost its way. All in all, no one gets anything to do here. This time, the exposition is so thick that everyone except acolytes may tune out. The Muppet steals what's otherwise an underwhelming show. It was all the way in 2005, sheesh. How I wish I could say something other than Ho hum. Should have thought of something else. Then this is all the way back in 2003, like a year after the movie came out. Yes, it's better than the Phantom Menace. Think for a minute about how little that means. Dang. 2002. Oof, a lot of people were pretty rough. Let's move on into the audience.
I hate them!
George B. Even worse than its predecessor, this movie has one of the worst romances in cinematic history, or cinema history. Yeah, I will admit that my boy Anakin was trying way too hard to, rizz up Padme. It was like aggressive. Like, dude, relax. I still liked it though. I really did not care for this movie all too much. It's got some good parts, but not a good movie. The original trilogy was a huge part of my childhood, and this was just pure disappointment. I actually preferred the Phantom Menace, mainly because of the showdown with Darth Maul. As a kid, I always imagined Anakin to be this edgy, gritty character, and what I got was a whiny, annoying brat. I don't blame the actor, he just did the best with what he had. I found the ending underwhelming, and the Jedi fight was a massive letdown. I wanted some edge, but it was just full of horrible dialogue, and C-3PO's jokes are eye-rollingly bad. The romance is awful and about as cringy as you can get. I will agree with you, it was pretty cringy. It's got way too many effects, and personally it made me feel detached from it. I'm trying hard to find a redeeming quality, but honestly can't think of one. What did they do to my beloved Star Wars? Oh man, he was talking from the soul right there, man. Oh, people aren't gonna like this one. Ethan G. This movie is basically the Clone Wars series, but with live action characters. It also happens to be terrible. Sheesh. Bad acting and worse writing plagued this series of Star Wars. The most forgettable Star Wars movie because of the whole movie being about a side story that is only touched on again in the Clone Wars show. Yeah, basically. I'm gonna read one more, and this is the last one. Not Me R. A clear example of why it's worth paying writers, at least if you wish to please anyone other than those who only care for pretty action. Well, I don't know about you, but I felt like they were just a little bit more rough on Attack of the Clones than they were the Phantom Menace. But that leads us into the final movie of this prequel trilogy, and that is Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, my personal favorite, and a lot of other people that grew up with the prequel trilogy's personal favorite. Let's find these haters. 79% of the critics recommend that you go watch this film, a massive improvement of more critics liking this movie, and 66% of the audience recommending that you go watch this movie. The highest percentage of audience out of all the movies, at a 66%, recommend that you go watch this film. But the rest of the remaining percentage of both audience and critics is what we are looking for. Let's go with the critics. Yo, this guy does not like any of these. This is my third time reading his.
Oh, I hate you.
Given 100 years of cinema language with which to make us feel Anakin's turn, to make us experience his dread and suffering, Lucas decides instead to play in the sandbox of the future. The experience isn't fun, rather it's the best of the 3 chapters in Lucas' dull prequel saga, which isn't saying much. Some of it is truly unmissably great. Some of it is hilariously awful, and some of it is awful enough to even crawl up to the level of hilarity. Critics and fans are already praising the movie, claiming it's better than The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, but that's not difficult as both movies were bad, and the new one is just as bad in many ways. Devout fans will have to go. For the rest of us, the best rewards of this show were long ago, in a galaxy that now seems far, far away. Christopher Tukey. For all the hype, I fear this is a film that only the most uncritical Star Wars fans will truly enjoy. I guess I'm one of those uncritical Star Wars fans, because I truly enjoyed this film. Of course, being best Star Wars film since Empire Strikes Back isn't saying much when you consider what came between. Desson Thomas, top critic, ... Even though Revenge is a better experience than Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones, it doesn't add anything that's satisfying or compelling to the big picture. Sheesh, man. These people are rough. Let's see how rough it's going to be on the audience side. Paul S. I'm pissing off Caleb right now, for real, for real. I don't know who Caleb is. But this was literally 3 days ago at the time I'm recording this. Lame, boring, and dragged out. Absolutely none of the charm from the original trilogy. The only reason it earned an extra half star is because the fight scenes were pretty freaking cool. The fight scenes were pretty freaking cool. But it deserves more stars. I had the high ground, Anakin. What a troll. I've scrolled like 6 pages and I'm seeing nothing but good reviews. A lot of them are 5 stars. Like, look at this one. Good. There we go. We got one. Yoni B. This is a pretty hefty review, so I'll just read the first sentence. Hayden Christensen is abominable to watch. Sheesh. The CGI still sucks all the soul out of the movie, and some of the dialogue is truly terrible. Having grown up with the original episodes of Star Wars through Return of the Jedi, it would take a lot to earn my thumbs up. This movie did not. Poor casting made this flick all but unwatchable from my perspective. I'd rather be tortured by Darth Maul every day than watch these again. Wow, that's rough. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. The audience and critics were very, very brutal when it came to their reviews on the prequel trilogies. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it to the end, leave your honest opinion on how you felt about all 3 of these movies. Did you love them? Did you hate them? Did you feel in between? Let me know. Leave a like on this video because it helps out so much. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, turn on post notifications so you can see more videos just like this. Thanks for watching.